Welcome, dear viewers. For more exclusive, thrilling stories every week, subscribe to our channel. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. I've always believed there's a moment, one clear moment, when everything changes. Sometimes it's loud, violent, a crash of glass, a scream in the dark. But other times, it's quiet. A single misstep, a slip, a splash, and suddenly you're not in the same world anymore. For me, it happened on a camping trip. Just a normal, long overdue weekend in the woods with my wife and 2 kids. Laura and I had talked about it for years. Let's take them somewhere without Wi-Fi, she said. Somewhere they can breathe. She was right, of course. Erin was glued to her phone lately, and Caleb, our youngest, had developed this habit of watching the same cartoon on loop, like he couldn't stand silence. So we packed up the SUV and drove out to the Hollow Creek trails, a place I vaguely remembered from my own childhood. Thick trees, wide rivers, and this eerie calm that settles in right before dusk, where even the birds go quiet. We parked near the ranger station, shouldered our gear, and started down the trail. The forest was beautiful. Golden light filtered through the branches, casting shadows that danced across the dirt path. Erin trudged ahead with her headphones on, half listening to us, and Caleb was running ahead in bursts, little legs churning, arms flailing like he thought he could take off if he just went fast enough. Laura smiled at me as we walked. "You know," she said, "this might actually be good for us." I nodded. "Feels like the kind of place where nothing bad ever happens." I shouldn't have said that. There was a river that crossed the trail a few miles in. It was wide, dark, and faster than I remembered. The trees grew closer to the banks here, their roots twisting down into the rushing water like skeletal fingers. We took a break beside it, Caleb tossing small rocks into the current while Erin scrolled through old photos on her phone, looking unimpressed. I remember the sound of the river, this deep, constant hush, like the whole forest was whispering beneath it. Laura leaned down to refill a bottle from the edge. That's when it happened. Caleb was playing near the edge. One second he was laughing, holding up a stick like a sword. The next, he was gone. No scream, just a splash. I heard it and turned, saw only ripples where he'd been. Laura screamed his name. Erin dropped her phone. I ran. I didn't even hesitate. I dove in, head first into the freezing dark. The current hit me like a wall, cold, relentless. It pulled at my limbs, dragged me down until I couldn't tell which way was up. I opened my eyes underwater, just darkness. No sign of Caleb, no bubbles, no color. I kicked, thrashed, reached, nothing. Eventually my lungs burned too much to keep searching. I surfaced, gasping. Laura was shouting from the bank. Then she stopped. I turned and saw him. Caleb was standing at the shore, soaked, pale, perfectly still, just watching me. He wasn't shivering, he wasn't coughing, just standing there, water dripping from his clothes. I swam back as fast as I could, dragging myself onto the bank. Laura was already at his side, her hands on his shoulders, touching his face. But she froze, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then she yanked her hands away and stumbled back. I saw why. Her palms were red, blistered, the skin puffing and cracking like she'd grabbed a hot iron. "What?" she gasped. "What is this? What's happening?" Caleb didn't move. She didn't speak. I crawled over and touched his arm. He was cold, not just cold, wrong, like touching something that had never been alive. "Caleb?" I whispered. He looked up at me and smiled. But it wasn't his smile. Not the gap-toothed grin I knew, the one he gave when he snuck a marshmallow or beat me at a board game. His smile was precise, controlled, like he was imitating the idea of smiling. His eyes blinked, slowly, too slowly. "I'm tired," he said. His voice was flat, toneless, as if someone else was trying to remember how a child sounded. We wrapped him in a towel and walked the 2 miles back in silence. No service, no ranger in sight. We got in the car and drove to the nearest clinic. Laura shaking the entire ride, her hands wrapped in gauze from our first aid kit. The doctor said it looked like chemical burns. Asked what she'd touched. She couldn't answer. They checked Caleb over, ran tests, blood work, everything came back normal. No signs of trauma, infection, or hypothermia. And yet, that night, I woke to the sound of whispering. Caleb was sitting up in his sleeping bag at the motel, whispering to himself. Only it wasn't his voice, it was mine, perfectly mimicked. Saying things I never said. I saw the place where light doesn't reach. I drank from it. My breath caught in my throat. I turned on the lamp. Caleb blinked. "Daddy?" he asked. "Why are you scared?" The rest of that night passed in fragments. Laura and I barely slept. She kept waking in small gasps, her hands twitching beneath the bandages. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to the low hum of the motel's old air conditioner and the too steady breathing of our son. He didn't toss or turn, didn't snore like he usually did. He just lay there, still, like something conserving energy. In the morning, he asked for cereal. Sat at the edge of the bed, legs swinging, spoon in hand. Cheerful, but there was something off about it all. He didn't blink when the spoon clattered, didn't flinch when a horn blared outside. And when he chewed, he didn't move his jaw right, like he was mimicking chewing from memory. Lara kept glancing at me across the room. Maybe it's shock, she whispered when Caleb was in the bathroom brushing his teeth. Maybe he hit his head or... He's not in shock, I said quietly. She looked at me, her face pale. Then what the hell is he? We didn't have an answer. So we did what terrified parents do when the world stops making sense. We pretended. We packed up the motel room, put Caleb in the back seat, drove to a nearby diner. He said he was hungry again. Ate twice as much as usual. Pancakes, sausage, toast. Ate without pausing, never wiped his mouth, and his eyes never left the window. That was the first time I noticed it. He kept looking back in the direction of the woods, toward the river, like something out there was still watching, or waiting. Back home, things got worse. The dog, Milo, wouldn't go near him. Not once. He'd growl low in his throat whenever Caleb walked into the room, tail tucked, hackles up. We tried crating him, tried moving him to the backyard, but every time Caleb came outside, Milo would whimper and bolt to the fence, scratching like mad to get away. Caleb didn't seem to notice or care. At night I'd wake to find his door open. He'd be standing in the hallway staring out the front window, just watching. I asked him what he was looking at. "Listening," he said. "Sometimes I hear it calling." "What do you hear, buddy?" His head turned slowly. The smile came again. "That river has a voice, Dad. You just don't know the right ears to hear it." Laura broke down a few days later. We were brushing teeth side by side, and I noticed she'd been wrapping her hands in cloth all day. Even inside, she caught me looking, pulled the fabric down. Her palms were raw, not like the burns were healing, like they were getting worse. The blisters were blackened now, the skin around them peeling in papery curls. "It burns when I touch anything he's touched," she whispered. "The towel, the doorknob, the damn fridge handle." I didn't know what to say. And then she said the thing I was afraid we were both thinking. "I don't think that's our son." She cried into my chest, quietly, the way people cry when they don't want something to hear. I wanted to say she was wrong. I wanted to believe it. But I couldn't forget that moment in the motel, that whispering voice in the dark. He used my voice, and sometimes late at night, I hear him again, mimicking Laura. Or Aaron. Once I heard him whispering in Caleb's voice, whispering things that curdled my blood. There are bones beneath that riverbed. They taught me how to wear skin. He always stops when I get too close, just sits there, eyes wide, face blank. like nothing happened. But he knows I'm listening. Last night, it got worse. Laura had gone to lie down early. Erin was holed up in her room, probably watching TikToks and trying to pretend her world wasn't unraveling. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, nursing a beer, trying to remember how life used to feel. Then I saw Caleb in the backyard. It was close to midnight. He was standing barefoot in the grass, wearing just his pajamas, staring up at the moon. I opened the door. "Caleb?" He turned. "I'm not cold," he said, before I even asked. "I didn't say you were. You're wondering why I'm out here." I hesitated. "Yeah?" He tilted his head. "The moonlight makes it easier to remember what I used to be." I didn't move. He smiled again, a little wider this time. "You miss him, don't you?" My throat tightened. "What?" "Caleb. The real one." The wind picked up then, cold, bitter, and I swear, for just a second, the shadows moved behind him, as if something was standing just outside the light. He walked past me into the house, sat down on the couch, picked up his favorite toy car and rolled it back and forth in absolute silence. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching him, the boy who used to call me Dad. I tried to convince Laura to leave. Told her we'd pack a few bags, take Erin, and go stay with her sister in Pennsylvania for a while, just until we figured things out. She didn't say no. She just looked past me through the living room where Caleb sat motionless in front of the TV. The screen was black. He hadn't turned it on. Just sat there staring at his reflection like it was whispering secrets only he could hear. "We can't leave him," she said finally. "Laura, he's still our son. I know it's wrong. I know he's different. But there's something of him in there. I feel it." I didn't know how to argue with that, because I wanted to believe it too. That night, I dreamt of the river. Except I was in it, cold water rushing over my head, my limbs heavy like they were wrapped in chains. Something moved beneath me, not swimming, walking, dragging. In the dream, I looked down and saw fingers curling around my ankle, gray and long, like roots torn from the earth. I woke to a sound, not a loud one, just a small splash. I blinked the sleep away, listened. There it was again, a splash, then another. I got up and followed it. It was coming from the bathroom. The door was cracked, light flickering behind it. I pushed it open, and there he was. Caleb stood in the bathtub, fully clothed, water overflowing around his ankles. He didn't look up, didn't acknowledge me at all, just stared down into the water, whispering. I stepped forward. "What are you doing?" I asked. Still no reaction. I touched his shoulder gently. "Caleb." He turned then, slowly, and I saw his eyes. They weren't Caleb's eyes. They were too dark, not in color, in depth, like there was no light behind them, no reflection, like looking into two holes cut into a mask. He opened his mouth. "Dad," he said. "I can feel his heartbeat in here." He touched his own chest. He smiled faintly. "Every night it slows down a little. I think he's getting quieter." I stumbled back, knocked over the towel rack, and Laura came running. "What happened?" she cried. "What is it?" I couldn't speak, just pointed. Caleb was already stepping out of the tub, soaked from head to toe. He left puddles in his wake as he walked calmly back to his room. Laura knelt beside the tub and stared into the water. There was something at the bottom, something dark and soft-looking, like moss or rotting fabric. She reached in slowly and pulled it out. It was one of Caleb's old shirts, the one he was wearing the day he fell into the river. But it wasn't torn or dirty. It was slimy, like it had been dredged from the bottom of a swamp, and it was too small, like it belonged to a younger child. Laura dropped it with a gasp. Her bandaged hands began to redden immediately, as if burned just from touching it. I helped her up. Neither of us said it, but I think we both knew what it meant. That shirt shouldn't have been there. The version of Caleb in this house had come out of that river wearing dry clothes, newer ones, but this was a piece of the real him, the one we'd lost, the one who never came back. Erin came to me the next morning. She's 13, brilliant, quiet, too perceptive for her own good. She hadn't said much since the trip, had barely looked at Caleb. But that morning she walked into the kitchen and said, "Dad, something's wrong with my brother." I waited. She pulled out her phone and showed me a video. It was shaky, dim, looked like it was taken from her bedroom window, overlooking the backyard. In the video, it was sometime after midnight. Caleb stood alone in the yard, shirtless, back to the camera. And he was talking, but not to anyone we could see. I thought maybe he was talking to himself, Erin whispered. But look, she fast-forwarded a bit. The image flickered as she zoomed in. There, in the shadows just behind the tree line, something moved. Something tall and narrow, with limbs that hung too low and crooked. I couldn't see its face, but it leaned forward almost like it was listening. "I think he knows it's there," she said. "I think he's been going out there to see it, every night." I couldn't breathe. That night, I locked his window, set an old baby monitor in his room, sat in the living room with the second half, volume turned up. At 2:47 a.m., I heard the window open anyway. I didn't hesitate. I bolted down the hallway and burst into Caleb's room just as the curtains fluttered in the cold night air. The window was wide open. The room was empty. The sheets on his bed were still warm, creased where his small body had just been lying. The baby monitor clicked and hissed with static behind me, picking up the sound of wind and distant crickets. I leaned out the window and looked into the backyard. At first, I didn't see anything. Then something shifted near the tree line. A shape, small and pale, walking slowly toward the woods, and behind it, a taller silhouette, lurching with an unnatural gait, just like in Erin's video. I grabbed the flashlight and sprinted through the house. Laura was halfway down the stairs already, barefoot and wild-eyed. "He's gone out again?" I said. She didn't ask questions, she just followed. We ran into the woods together, past the swing set and the dying hydrangeas, through the rotted wooden gate that marked the edge of our property. The air was damp and heavy, filled with the scent of wet leaves and something fouler, like rusted metal or rotting roots. We kept calling his name. "Caleb, Caleb, please, come back." No answer. Just the echo of our own voices, swallowed quickly by the trees. The flashlight's beam caught something ahead, a shape crouched low to the ground. It was him. He was kneeling by a shallow creek that trickled between the trees. His hands were in the water, gently stirring it, as though he was petting something beneath the surface. "Caleb!" I shouted. He didn't turn. He said something then, soft and low, like he was speaking to someone beside him. The words didn't make sense. Not English, not even a language I recognized. They were wet words, the kind that made your skin crawl just hearing them. I rushed forward. Laura grabbed my arm, but I shook her off and ran down the slope, skidding through the mud until I was right behind him. I grabbed his shoulders. He finally looked up. His eyes glowed faintly in the light, just for a moment, a slick, dark shimmer like oil on water. His lips were moving, but he wasn't speaking anymore. He was humming, a tune I'd never heard before. It sounded ancient, hollow, like wind blowing through a tunnel deep underground. I pulled him to his feet, hard. "We're going home." He didn't resist. He just stood there, barefoot in the mud, staring at me and smiling. As we turned back, I felt it behind us, a presence, watching, following. The woods were too quiet. The air is too still. Even the insects had gone silent. At the edge of the backyard, I turned to look. There was nothing there. But the shape of the tree line looked wrong, like some of the branches were bending toward us, like they were leaning in to listen. That was last night. Today, everything is quiet again. Too quiet. Laura hasn't left the bedroom. Her hands have started blistering again, even though she hasn't touched Caleb since that night. She swears she can feel something pulsing inside her skin. I caught her staring at her reflection in the mirror this morning, her mouth slightly open, like she was listening to something only she could hear. Erin's been silent too, locked in her room, texting me now and then to ask if he's okay. But she doesn't say his name anymore. She refuses to. As for Caleb, he just sits in his room now, humming that same tune under his breath, over and over and over. I tried to record it on my phone, but every time I play it back, the audio cuts out at that exact moment, leaves only static. I checked under his bed this morning. Don't ask me why. I guess I had to. I found a pile of river stones there. Wet ones, smelling of algae and silt, arranged in a perfect circle. There was something else in the middle, something wrapped in cloth. I haven't opened it yet. I'm afraid of what it might be. Tonight, I'm going to try something. I'm going to take him back to the river, back to the place it happened. Maybe I can make it give him back, or maybe I'll just be feeding it again. We left just after dusk. Caleb didn't ask why. He climbed into the back seat without a word, still clutching that damp stuffed rabbit we bought him on his 3rd birthday. Its fur had turned gray and matted since the river. I didn't even know he'd kept it. Laura stood at the front door as we pulled out of the driveway. She didn't wave. She didn't speak. Her hands were bandaged now, stiff and puffy. The blisters had spread halfway up her arms. She just stood there like she was watching something behind me, not Caleb. The air outside was heavy and hot, even for early fall. A low pressure hung around us like a soaked blanket. As I drove, Caleb hummed under his breath again, so quiet I could almost convince myself it wasn't real. But every time I looked in the rearview mirror, his eyes were open, unblinking, watching the woods drift past. We arrived at the trailhead just before dark. Same parking lot, same cracked asphalt and peeling map of the park nailed to the old wooden sign. No other cars around. Of course. I brought the flashlight, 2 bottles of water, and a long coil of nylon rope from the garage. I'm not sure why. Some primal part of me still believed that whatever I found out here, I might be able to pull it back. We walked in silence. Caleb stayed behind me the entire time, bare feet whispering against the dirt path. The beam of my flashlight jittered across tree trunks and fallen branches. Every few steps, I thought I heard something behind us, a second pair of footsteps. But when I turned, only Caleb. Always Caleb. We reached the river just as night fell, and God help me, it was different. The trees on the far bank were taller now, towering, ancient things whose roots knuckled out from the earth like bones. Mist drifted above the water in long, slow tendrils, and the surface of the river, it wasn't moving. Not really. It rippled, yes, but not from the current. More like it was breathing. Like something underneath was exhaling slowly. I remember this place, Caleb said softly behind me. I froze. It was the first time he'd spoken all day. I was in the water, he continued. It was cold, but something found me. He stepped closer to the riverbank. It said I didn't have to be scared anymore. I grabbed his arm. It was cold. I mean, ice cold, like he'd just come out of the lake again. But we'd walked for nearly an hour. We're going home, I said. No, he whispered. It's almost here. The wind stopped. Dead silence. And then something rose from the river. At first, I thought it was a trick of the mist, but it grew taller, darker, a figure. Faceless, slick-skinned, its body shifting like it's made of wet rope or tangled vines. Caleb didn't move. I pulled him back, stumbling on the rocks, dragging him away from the bank. He fought me, not with strength, but with stillness, refusing to move like a tree rooted into the earth. I belong to it now, he said. The thing stepped closer. I couldn't see its feet, but I heard the sound like meat slapping against stone. It bent toward us, water streaming from its form. And then it spoke. Not with a voice, but with memory. Suddenly I was back in the river, that moment. Cold, blackness all around me, struggling to hold on to Caleb, fingers slipping on his soaked jacket. I was gasping, screaming his name, and then I felt it. And hands pulling him upward, but not mine. The memory faded, and I staggered back. "No," I whispered. "You didn't save him, you replaced him." The thing stood still. Caleb looked up at it, reverent, trusting. "It's okay," he said to me. "It said I can come home with you, but I have to bring something back later." I stared at him, horror spreading through my chest like ice in my lungs. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer, he just smiled, and in that moment, the water behind the creature parted. Just for a second, and I swear to God, I saw a face. My face. But Sanders saw it, floating just beneath the surface, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Then the river swallowed it again. I turned and ran. I carried Caleb, fought him the whole way back to the car. He never screamed, never kicked, just watched me, calm and quiet, like he knew something I didn't. We've been home for 2 days. He hasn't said another word, but he waits by the window every night now, staring toward the woods. Last night he placed a small river stone on the windowsill. Tonight there are 2. I called the ranger station the next morning, told them I thought someone had gone missing by the river trail, and asked if they could check the area. I didn't say who or what I thought might still be there. The man on the other end went quiet for a long time. Then he asked which trailhead. When I told him, he just said, "We don't service that end anymore," and hung up. I've stopped sleeping. Lara, too. She paces at night, her bandaged hands curled awkwardly against her chest, like she's trying to hold something in. She won't go near Caleb anymore. She won't even call him by name. When I ask her what's wrong, she just says, "He's too quiet, and he listens too well." That's not something you normally complain about with a kid, is it? But I know what she means. He doesn't act like a child anymore. He doesn't act like anything. It's the little things that are hardest to ignore, like the way the hallway lights flicker when he walks past, or the wet footprints that appear outside the bathroom door, even though no one's been in the tub, or the stuffed rabbit. It's dry now. Should have smelled like mildew after what it went through, but it doesn't. It smells like the river, like silt and cold and something else, something hungry. Last night I found it sitting at the top of the stairs, facing downward, like it was watching us. I tried taking Caleb to a doctor, told the pediatrician he was acting off after a near drowning. They ran all the usual tests, reflexes, vitals, cognition. She smiled at me afterward and said, "Well, he's a very calm young man, isn't he?" Then she added, "They say water changes people." She didn't charge me, didn't write anything down. She just walked me to the door and said, "Take care of him." Not get him help, not keep an eye on him, just take care. Like she knew I wouldn't have much time left. It's been a week now, 7 nights. Every evening, just before dark, Caleb places a small object on the windowsill. A stone, a fishbone. Once it was a clump of wet moss, still dripping. Tonight, it was a fingernail. Too large to be his. Laura threw it in the trash and locked herself in the bathroom. I don't blame her. I would have done the same. I've started sleeping with the bedroom door locked, not because I think he'd hurt us. No, he doesn't need to. I think he's waiting for the river to come to him. I dream about it now. Black water rising through the trees, creeping through the fields, filling the roads, lapping at our porch steps. And beneath it, faces. Familiar ones. Watching. Waiting. Sometimes, I dream I'm still down there, that I never made it out, that something crawled into my skin and climbed out in my place. And when I wake up, sometimes I'm not sure which version of me opened their eyes. Tonight, Caleb spoke again, just one sentence. He was standing by the window in the dark, and I walked in without turning the light on. His voice was calm, low, and far too old for his body. "They're almost here," he whispered. Then he turned around. His eyes were black, not just the pupils. All of it. And for the first time since the river, I felt real fear. Not the kind that makes you scream or run. The kind that makes you understand. Understand that there's no going back. No rescue. No undoing. Only the quiet rising tide. Only the thing that walks in your child's skin. Only the thing that smiles when it hears the word daddy.